Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pro Football Historian channel. I'm your host, Flynn Given. And today we're talking about the Jets and their 22 offseason. We'll preview it, break down their schedule that they had this year, and look at the outlook of this team. Obviously, they went 4-13, last place in the division. They are right now have the fourth overall pick and also have another first-round pick from the Seattle Seahawks in the Jamal Adams trade. So if you look at, they started the season, they call it the Sam Darnold revenge game, whatever you want to call it. Didn't really do anything the first half. Zach Wilson's first start. He finally did stuff later in the game, but the 16 points they gave up in the second quarter was just too much. Christian McCaffrey, I think, had a decent game. They really fed him the ball. 98 yards on 21 carries. And the Jets, no ground game at all, and Zach Wilson, sacked 6 times. Overall it was an all right game, but 14 points isn't going to be enough. And before the year, this team had a lot of injuries. We'll probably discuss that a little bit later in the video, but you will see that this team could get really good, or at least become average next year. There's some possibilities of that. The next week they played the New England Patriots. Zach Wilson had an awful game. We'll look at the breakdown. New England jumped ahead, and then the Jets couldn't do anything. Zach Wilson, 4 interceptions. And Mac Jones, didn't have to do too much. Try to run the ball, and the Jets actually did fairly well stopping the run. I know there was a 26-yard run. I'm trying to remember. I think Damian Harris it was either this or another Jets game where he just, broke like multiple tackles and scored a touchdown. But you could say this is definitely Zach Wilson's worst game, and you hope for Jets fan this is the worst game of his career, even though this is just his rookie year. They ran the ball actually fairly okay, but I think some of this was when the game was pretty much over. And in week 3, they played the Denver Broncos. Another not so good performance. Getting shut out. Zach Wilson 2 picks, 160 yards. Sacked 5 times. The offensive line could not protect the quarterback this year. It got a little bit better when Duvernay Tardif came into the lineup. But for the most part, they definitely have to address that. They got pieces. Becton, when, he's fully healthy, should be pretty good. Former first-round pick. Defensively, I don't think the Jets did too bad, probably on the field a ton. And I guess Denver also didn't have to take too many risks. And they came out with a win. Starting, the season 0-3. Then an overtime win against the Tennessee Titans. Big upset. Zach Wilson made some big plays in this game, especially on that touchdown pass to Corey Davis, I believe it was. I'm looking at the wrong roster. But again, you got a 53-yard touchdown to Corey Davis. Jason Crowder also had a touchdown. Zach Wilson played fairly well. Obviously, threw another interception. Usually made one mistake at least almost every game. Tannehill didn't play too bad, but sacked 7 times. And Derrick Henry had a pretty good game. So ultimately, it wasn't enough for the Titans. And the Jets, come out with the victory. First one of the year. They head to Atlanta. In London, at the time, maybe the Jets could win this game. They could stop the run. So put it on Matt Ryan, and then Zach Wilson, he's playing against a defense they might be able to, play fairly well against. And it didn't really happen. The score indicated it was closer than probably it was. But Zach Wilson, an interception, a bad interception. Remember it? It's on like the left sideline. And Matt Ryan, I noticed Kyle Pitts got involved in this game, 9 catches. Didn't have an answer for Kyle Pitts. And, in London, the Falcons came out victorious. A team that I don't think is that much more talented than the Jets, honestly. Especially the Jets get fully healthy. And, also we'll talk about the offseason. They're going to have a lot of cap room. They should have a pretty decent roster going next year. They got a bye week in week 5. Actually, I should say maybe week 6. Either way. Then they play the Patriots. Patriots absolutely destroy the Jets here. This game, Zach Wilson, I think, came out with an injury. Mike White came in and didn't fare too well himself. Mac Jones had a pretty good game. And a touchdown pass from Kedrick Bourne. Brian Hoyer finishing off the day, and he played pretty well in his few throws. And Damon Harris, good yards per carry average. And just domination all the way around. Jets couldn't run the ball again. And I think Michael Carter could be a decent back for this team. The offensive line wasn't there this year to help them be able to run. And a lot of teams probably focused and got rid of it and focused on just stopping Zach Wilson for the most part. And I think, I'm not saying this is a hot day. I think Zach Wilson could be the best quarterback in this draft class. For most of the year, it didn't really show that way or look that way, but he's probably the most talented of the quarterbacks. So maybe Trey Lance, he's pretty talented as well. The first round picks. This guy has definitely arm strength, mobility, everything that you can ask for. And even though he has a lot of interceptions, he's pretty accurate with the ball. He's probably he's up there in accuracy, and Mac Jones is pretty accurate. He doesn't have this total package, that some of the top tier quarterbacks have, which he does. Let's go in this game, though. Game where Mike White, this was like everyone saying Mike White should be the starter. 3 touchdowns, did have 2 interceptions. This is just a game, the Bengals, I don't know what they were doing defensively, just allowing so many short passes. You just look at the catches. Michael Carter, 14 catches. 14 targets, 9 catches. Ty Johnson, another running back. We can even sort it by targets. Well, I was hoping to sort it by target. Either way, Crowder had 8 on 9. They just allowed so many short catches. And I'm in the 10-yard average for Crowder. Just let him do whatever, give easy completion for Mike White, and he made a couple decent throws, but it's ultimately why they won. Joe Burrow fumbled in this game. Didn't look like he lost it, but either way, 3 sacks, interception from Burrow. But you can see this team has competed with 2 teams that were fairly good teams in the this year in the AFC, and that's 2 of their wins. So, being a team that went to the Super Bowl and being the Titans are the number 1 seed in the AFC. And then they went to the Colts. In this game, Mike White got hurt, and the veteran Josh Johnson came in. He played fairly well. Some of it was garbage time, honestly. Very late a game. The Colts let up a lot, 14 points. And Carson Wentz had probably his best game of the year. And Jonathan Taylor just did not get stopped. Naeem Hines even had a good game. He did what they wanted. But, Jets points-wise did put up 30. Just how much was it relevant points? Not many, I would say. From that point, the Colts kind of went on a roll. Then they went to Buffalo. This was another terrible Mike White game. I think 4 interceptions, if I'm correct. Yep, 4 interceptions. Flacco came in, I believe, near the end, and you can't ask much more on 3 passes. Again, couldn't run the ball. Even Tevin Coleman had one 15-yard run. This is just a game where Bills dominated all phases of the game. And the Bills had a few games like that. A game against Miami, a game against Houston. They beat up on some of these, poorer teams. And this was one of those games. The next week, I believe, I don't know how I got to that, but I believe this was a Flacco game. Flacco, got the start, played fairly well, but Tua had a pretty good game against the Jets defense. And it was competitive. Just ultimately, the Dolphins' better team, a hotter team. This was one of those games of the Jets kind of did run the ball decently well. One of the better games. It wasn't like an outstanding game, but for the most part, can't complain about the rushing effort compared to the other weeks. So that's when Miami started to get on a roll, on their winning streak. Then they played the Houston Texans, the Jets. Zach Wilson came back. I know he had a very odd interception off the back of a Ty Johnson, which we talked about this game a little bit in the Texans preview or overview, off-season overview. And in this game, the Jets ran the ball, committed to it, and Zach Wilson, even though no touchdowns and not a lot of production from the passing game, Jets were good enough to run the ball. Tyrod Taylor throwing an interception, which Franklin Myers got on a 32-yard, interception and run. And they sacked him 5 times as well, the Jets. Jets come out with the victory in an ugly game. That was definitely on paper looking like the worst game of that week and arguably the season. Now we go on to the Eagles game where both teams, the first 3 possessions were touchdowns. Jets, I think, missed an extra point, and then that led them to go for 2 a couple of times, and they didn't get any of them, making it 18-21, but eventually Eagles got another field goal before half, so it was 24-18, and then the Jets did nothing in the second half. I know Zach Wilson had a little bit of pretty bad interception where he just basically overthrew it. I think the read was okay. It was going to be contested, but it was an overthrow. Otherwise, Zach Wilson played fairly well. He didn't really try to run the ball too much, and you can see the Eagles just controlled this game. Gardner Minshew was really good. Seeing Policeman really just plays he grounded it on a screen and maybe even a drop. But again, Jets at least competed parts of the game. Did have some scoring drives, but wasn't enough. Eagles come out victorious. The Jets fall to 3-9. Then they played the Saints. A game where most of the game it was honestly very close. A lot of field goals. At the very end, the Saints dominate with the Taysom Hill running the ball. Since they really tried to give it to Kamara, and he had a lot of yards, but wasn't the greatest yards per carry average. He also had 4 catches. Taysom Hill controlled it. Didn't really do too much in the air. Wasn't asked to do too much, and he had 2 touchdowns on the ground, a 44-yard run at the end. He did fumble twice, didn't lose either. And Zach Wilson, wasn't a good game, but didn't turn it over. Again, Jets could not run the ball. You can see Zach Wilson led the team in rushing yards, showing you this is not a very talented squad, at least offensively for the Jets. Which I think they're going to improve that. Right now, their number 1 receiver is Corey Davis, who was a number 2 for most, if not all, of his career in Tennessee. And, they can just add another piece, a young receiver. you can build upon this. They have Braxton Berrios is a free agent who they've got more involved later in the year. This game, the Jets were they played competitive. They actually had a lead most of the game, and it became tied at the end of the third. But well, I shouldn't say at the end of the in the third quarter, and then it was tied going into the fourth quarter. So in this game, Zach Wilson, no touchdown, no picks, got sacked 6 times, did have a rushing touchdown, and Tua had some ugly interception, which kind of kept the Jets in the game. But Duke Johnson, I think recently signed before this game, had a really good game, 2 touchdowns, 107 yards, and interceptions from the Jets. I'm just seeing if I can find that. It was Ashton Davis and Brandon Echols. So yeah, the Jets competed, but it ultimately was not enough against the Dolphins. They then played Jacksonville, two of the worst teams in the league. Another bad game on paper, but the number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick. And for the most part, neither team did too much. Jets were up pretty much the whole game. After they had the long 52-yard touchdown from Zach Wilson, which is kind of crazy thing. He had 91 yards in this game. Michael Carter had 118, Tevin Coleman 57. A lot of rushing yards, some big runs. Michael Carter had a 38-yard run. And Zach Wilson didn't turn it over. One of the few games this year he didn't do that. And threw a touchdown as well while turning it over. And only 102 yards, but they just dominated on the run, running game. And at the end, it came down to Trevor Lawrence. And just, you can say coaching or Trevor Lawrence fault, whoever, but just didn't execute when they got down inside the 5 or so. I think they had a false start or something when they were at the 1. Ultimately, they just couldn't get in the end zone. Deflected, batted down at the very end, and the Jets came up on top, winning by 5. And that would be the Jets' 4th win, their last win of the year. But the next week, they actually competed against Tampa Bay. I know most people remember this is the Antonio Brown game, and running off the field, or hopping off, or jumping jacket off the field. Either way, Jets really blew this game. They had some missing communications late in the game. But either way, they were up in half. Kind of made the Bucs one-dimensional, if I remember correctly. Could not run the ball, you could see. And it came down to Tom Brady, and obviously he came through. Zach Wilson played good as well, didn't turn it over. As you can see, there's a lot of games where Zach Wilson hasn't turned it over. He's being somewhat efficient. Like, it's not great completion percentage, but he has a bunch of decent NFL players at wide receivers. Just none of these guys are like starters or go-to guys or anything like that. And the miscommunication, I think they were supposed to give it to Berrios, did quarterback sneak, did not get on a 4th down. Inside, the red zone, they could have got a field goal if they just did that, or they could have, obviously the guy, they won the game, but gave the Buccaneers the long field to go, and they did it plenty in that short amount of time. They went down the field. Cyril Grayson touchdown, which we didn't really see much of Cyril Grayson the rest of the year after that touchdown grab, but Jets had their shots again. Another good team where they had opportunities, and it didn't close out that great against this Buffalo team where they got dominated the first time. Zach Wilson just got sacked a ton in this game, 8 times, almost 10 yards each time. 7 for 20. They had one decent throw. Probably must have been, it was the 40-yard throw, which is most of his yards, honestly. About half his yards. And I'm just trying to make it was probably Elijah Moore. Or no, it was Keelan Cole got that one. Elijah Moore was actually hurt, I believe. So, he could be a decent wide receiver, slot receiver probably. But Elijah Moore obviously not playing in this game. But for the future down the road in 22 season, 2023 season, could be, looks like he's going to be a starter for the Jets team. And I don't know if Crowder's going to be on the team and all that, but you can find some outside receivers or at least one more because you got Corey Davis signed pretty big contract. Um, they could play fairly well. Look, the Jets defense wasn't amazing, but kept Josh Allen for the most part in check. He had 2 touchdowns and turned over, and they couldn't sack him. But so the Bills ran the ball fairly well, which Jets really shouldn't allow that against the Bills, a team that got better running the ball, but wasn't that great for most of the season. I want to talk about the Jets' depth because obviously Wilson's a guy. I completely believe in him. And just as an NFL fan, he's my top quarterback. I know most people have said Trevor Lawrence. I think, again, I already said my reason for Zach Wilson. Really believe he's going to be really good. You just need to formulate or make the team better around him. Michael Carter, I kind of like too. 4th-round pick they got him, I believe. So that's pretty good. I think the running back, obviously, there's no superstar, but you can get away with that and work with that. And then receiver-wise, I kind of said, I don't know if Barrios is going to be back. I know they really want to sign him, but who knows? Someone might really pay him good money. Really good punt returner, even kick returner. And he can be a okay slot receiver. And they have Elijah Moore to be slot as well. Keelan Cole, right now, if he's their 4th or 5th receiver, that's fine. He's probably better than that, honestly. But he's a good 4th, possibly. And Corey Davis, he's just hard to see him being their number 1 or even Crowder being their number 1. And they don't have a tight end presence. Croft, Griffin, these are 2nd and 3rd tight ends on most teams. Fullback, not really. Want to have a fullback in the roster, they probably will, since they have Mike LaFleur as the offensive coordinator. Comes from Kyle Shanahan and that scheme. They have Juszczyk down there, so you could see him, getting a better fullback. Really doesn't matter, but they're a team that's going to keep a fullback on their roster, or at least a tight end that can do that job. Now they have Becton. If he's healthy, that helps. Got Morgan Moses they paid decent money to last year in free agency. Even though it was kind of odd how that was going, or were they going to sign him or not. They have George Fant, good backup. Vera Tucker they drafted. You got Duvernay Tardif, quality guard. You can call him the doctor or whatever you want to call him, but Connor McGovern. You can work with this offensive line if this is going to be a healthy squad. You just don't have much depth. Dan Feeney and Greg Van Roten. They're NFL players. They're just, I don't know if I really want them as your backups. Now, if they can get Carl Lawson healthy and back, they paid him a lot of money. Didn't play, I think, all year. Fadu Kasi looks like a really good run stopper. And Sheldon Rankins, if they get him healthy, that's 2 amazing run stoppers. And Quinn Williams, they drafted really high. Some people think he's been a little bit disappointment, but he's an also pretty good run stopper. And he can be a decent pass rusher. I just think they can't get a defensive tackle with pass rush. They just need another end through this rotation because Franklin Myers, he's fine. They paid him money. He's going to be on this team. They just need an edge rusher or another presence in this defensive line. Linebacker wise, they have Quincy Williams there. If Jared Davis can get healthy, they paid him money. He's going to be their coverage linebacker, you would think. And C.J. Mosley, he lost weight and he played better in coverage. And if they can get those 2 guys as their linebackers in nickel packages, pretty good linebacker core with the defensive line that's really good against the run. They shouldn't have to focus or put any eggs in that basket to stop the run. And then it's about their secondary, which that needs a lot of work. They don't have really any, I'm going to say, any starting corners that you'd like. Not even some of these guys are starting aren't really even good backups. Marcus May, don't know how contract wise that's gonna go down, but pretty good free safety. Ashton Davis, he'd be okay as a third safety or a dime nickel type. You having third safety on the field, but that's with a guy like Marcus Joyner. He can be a good nickel and safety. So if he's healthy, like again, there's a lot of ifs because a lot of these guys that he signed didn't play much, and they get all of that, and then the Jets' offense, they maybe draft a lot to help that side of the ball. They can really turn this team around. They really need to turn this team around. This is already a few years in this general manager era. I know it's first year. We just got done the first year of the Robert Saleh era, but Joe Douglas, I know he kind of joined mid off season, kind of his first year, but he's had a couple years over his roster, and there really hasn't been much improvement. And they got the money; they need to go out and turn this team around. Let's go to the draft. A lot of people think they're going to Kyle Hamilton, another safety. Let me turn this down. I don't know why this went on, but again, if you get Kyle Hamilton, that's a good safety. They can put Ashton Davis as a third safety. They can really help them. That's their first round pick. Then they got the Seahawks, which again, a receiver makes sense. This is a projected trade, so this is not actually where they are. We go where it would be the 10th pick. Sorry, I went with the mock draft. That's with trades, but it'd be technically the 10th pick. And they can get maybe an edge rusher, receiver. Maybe they get more picks. Obviously, trying to think last year, I believe they traded back. Right, maybe they just drafted Veritok. Either way, they have this draft capital. And then, they can also trade back up in the first round, which that's what this mock draft, get them an edge. So that if they can get 3 of those kind of filled, even early second round, the Jets, could be pretty good. They're in a tough division. Miami's got a new head coach, and I think Brian Flores did a great job with that roster. I don't know if they're as good as whatever you want to call it, 8-9, 9-8. Even the 10-win season 2 years ago. I don't know if they're going to do that with Mike McDaniel, I believe his name is, for the Miami Dolphins. And then Patriots should be pretty good, and they give problems to the Jets. So it's hard to see the Jets going just in the next year and even getting a win against the Patriots. Never know. And then against the Bills, there's ways they can play against the Bills, even though they're probably the best team in their division. Because if they can shut down the run without focusing on it and putting all their assets and all their game planning into their passing game, it can really make it hard on Josh Allen. So, that's why some of these games they won, or even were competed against some of these good playoff teams. The Jets aren't, a lot of people make fun of them and as a dumpster fire and all, but they got a lot of pieces and they can really turn this around pretty quick in the next year or two. And I kind of expect that. I don't know if they're going to have a winning year, but with that division they're in, but anything can happen. Again, I appreciate you watching. Thanks for listening. Subscribe if you need to, if you want to keep listening to these off-season overviews. and have a great day.